Violeta, also known in the game as Soul Weaver, is one of IdentityV's oldest hunters, and also one of my personal favorites. Her kit gives her versatility, being able to chairguard very effectively, but also giving her a very solid chase as well. She can trap loops and objectives with her webbing, and her web shot gives her reliable chip damage. Like I said, Violeta is one of the oldest hunters in the game, not only being the 4th hunter introduced, but also the first female hunter implemented in the game. If how I've described her kit sounds interesting to you, or if you just like her design, then listen up, grab a notepad, because this guide aims to teach you everything you need to know about Soul Weaver. Like I said already, Violeta's playstyles can vary between a more chairguard heavy playstyle and a more aggressive chased playstyle. In this guide, I'll be going over her kit, builds, and playstyles you can run to hopefully give you a good grasp on how she works. Before we fully begin, let's go over some of her stats. She has slightly slower base move speeds, moving at 4.56, vaulting at 2.81, breaking pellets at 3.14, along with having an attack recovery of 4.03 seconds. She makes up for this slower speed with boosts from her kit that are thankfully very easy to obtain and actually end up giving her more speed than most characters, providing a net positive despite her base stats. Before we get into Violeta's abilities, I want to explain how they work before we start. Violeta does have a resource bar that she has to manage. Every ability will take up a certain amount of her resources. The unfortunate thing you will very quickly notice with Violeta is, since she's an old character, the explanation on her kit is frankly horrible compared to more modern kit descriptions. Thankfully, we can easily find out some of the numbers ourselves. Her resource meter charges up at a rate of 1.2 per second, increasing to 1.4 when she reaches max presence. Soul Weaver has only 2 active abilities, and they're both pretty straightforward. Her first ability is called Webbing. By consuming 17 charge, Violeta can place down trap-like webs. Spinning webs is Violeta's natural instinct. Hold down the skill button to select a suitable place to release Entangled. When survivors are ensnared by Violeta's trap, they will become entangled, which can stack up to 3 layers. The first layer reveals survivors' location and decreases their interaction speed. The second layer additionally decreases survivors' movement speed, and the third layer greatly decreases survivors' movement speed and interaction speed again. When Violeta runs through the webs, she will gain a brief acceleration that gradually slows when passing cobweb traps. This effect can be stacked up to 3 times by using new webs. I would generally consider this to be Violeta's main ability and largely the most important part of her kit. Her webs can not only be used to trap loops or objectives, but also in chase to boost her own speeds. Like I said in the intro, Violeta can make up for her slower base speeds by buffs from her kit. These are those buffs. Walking through the webs gives her stacking movement speed, interaction speed, which includes things like pickup animation and chair speed, along with boosting pallet breaking, vaulting, and attack recovery speeds. This is where we hit a bit of a roadblock though. I also previously mentioned that since Violeta is one of the oldest characters in the game, her kit description is very dated. Where you would find things like charge consumption detailed in newer descriptions, Violeta's share very little info. Among this info, the exact amount of speed she gets per stack of her Entangled isn't listed, so it's very difficult to actually give a precise unit of measurement. No percentages, nothing. So, instead of giving you the numbers, this next little section will be pure visual demonstration of her speeds at each level of Entangled. Moving on to Violeta's next ability, we have Spinning. By consuming 15 charge, Violeta spits out a ball of web that entangles its target. Each successful hit deals half the damage of a normal attack, and the target is entangled with 1 layer of webbing, up to a maximum of 3 layers. This is Violeta's way of performing chip damage, and secondary way of applying Entangled to a target. This ability, while not her main ability, can still be a huge deal breaker. One of the biggest things to note is that anytime you successfully basic attack a survivor, they lose all of their Entangled stacks, but if you web shot them, they not only gain stacks, but they don't lose any previous stacks, regardless of them taking damage. Another important thing to remember is that at max presence, this ability gets reduced charge consumption, only needing 10 charge instead of 15. This not only lets you use it more often, but also ends up providing excess charge for using your webbing ability more often. This ability is also obviously chip damage, letting you do very strong combo setups. Let's think of a scenario quickly. Let's say you are guarding this chair while someone is trying to save. If they happen to have already taken a chip damage earlier, what you can do is web shot them to bring them to 50% health, then basic attack. You can do this because there's no attack recovery after firing a web, only the initial cast time, but right after, you can hit essentially instantly. This also ends up giving you potential to do a crazy 100-0 instant down. Let's think of another scenario. Let's say this time, instead of the survivor saving being at 25% health, they are completely healthy. There is one tricky technique that you can use to insta-down. If you happen to be at the right spot in your presence meter to where just one web shot will get you to max presence, you can shoot the survivor saving once. When you get max presence, the cooldown for your web shot automatically resets. So if you have enough charge saved, you can web shot again right after and follow up with a basic attack. This trick is genuinely difficult to pull off, and in addition to it requiring setup and hitting the proper combo, it's also something you can only do once per match. This alone isn't bad, being able to do it once is enough for it to be good, but the reason why it does kinda suck is because if you miss it or mess up the combo somehow, you aren't able to try again. This makes it more of a last-ditch effort, very situational play to go for. If you have a survivor nearly about to be eliminated and a teammate is trying to save, then might be a good time to try and go for it, since if you land it, the person on chair would run out of time, and you get your next chair very quickly. Moving on to the last part of Violeta's kit, her external trait called Cocoon Death. Violeta can wrap up a survivor in a cocoon with 60 threads, and eliminate them on the spot without rocket chairs. Any talent or trait affecting the elimination time will work on this ability too. In my opinion, this is a very niche trait. It's not always best to use, and frankly, I've never used it nor needed to use it. An important part of this ability is remembering traits that have effects on elimination time or proc off chairing a survivor will be active on cocoon survivors, meaning traits like Sadist, speeding up rocket countdown, and Berserker, giving increased attack recovery speed when a survivor is on chair, will apply when you cocoon a survivor. Moving on from Violeta's kit, let's talk about her builds and playstyles. To start, as always, let's quickly go over skills. Listen just isn't a good ability, don't bring it. Abnormal shouldn't be first pick, it's great to swap to if you have trump card. Excitement isn't bad, it's more situational based on the team you're against. Bringing it against someone with consistent, strong stuns might make it a better option compared to her standard picks. Patroller isn't all that great on her, I would not recommend it. You already have enough in your kit to slow down survivors and shut down noobs. You're better off taking something else. Teleport isn't bad. I wouldn't bring it off the bat, but swapping with trump card is viable. Peeper also isn't horrible, but again, you already have a lot in your kit to slow down and shut down. It would only be great in my opinion in a super heavy chairguarding playstyle, using it to slow down rescue speed even more than you already can. Blink is her standard in my opinion. Bringing it early helps you get your first down, unlocking your web shot ability. And lastly, warp is similar to teleport. I wouldn't bring it immediately, but if the situation calls, using trump card to swap to it might be a good play. Violeta's build recommended by the game is actually not too bad. Bringing both detention and trump card are 100% standard for her. Detention paired with the speed boost she can get provide a very strong endgame potential, and pairing that with trump card lets her take blink in the early game and swap to something like teleport, warp, or even abnormal when the situation calls for it. Building up in the persona web gives you wither, which is very strong on Violeta given her chairguarding potential. You also get destructiveness, which gives you faster pallet breaking. Comboing this with the speed boost she gets from entangled makes your pallet breaking even faster. Building over into panic is standard for every hunter, but also lets you build up into berserker, giving attack recovery when a survivor is on chair. I would sacrifice some things in this trait to get this higher, but I'll go over my personal build later. The last thing about this build is famine. This trait essentially reduces decoding speed by 6% for the first 50 seconds of the match if you aren't in chase. I want to quickly talk about this build before going into my personal recommendations. Firstly, in my opinion, the big problem with this build is famine. Not only do I think this isn't the greatest trait in general, but it's also frankly horrible to bring on Violeta. It can be useful on someone like Joseph, for example, but with Violeta, getting your first chase quickly is essential in getting your web shot. If you intentionally leave everyone alone for nearly a full minute just to get the boost from famine, you aren't playing Violeta in the most viable way. Getting your web shot quickly is essential in being able to apply the right amount of pressure to win games. Like I said though, this build isn't horrible. There are a few things I would change though, so let's look at how I would change this up to make it more straightforward and generally stronger. Firstly, I would 100% still recommend going down into detention and right into trump card. I believe these are the best picks for Violeta, so obviously we should go for them in this build. This build overall is pretty similar to the other. Again, there's only a few things I would change. I still recommend building up into destructiveness, but this is mainly to get Wither, which we've already identified as a good pick on Violeta. Faster palette breaking on Vio isn't bad by any means, but you make up for it already with Entangled, so this isn't a must bring. That being said, throwing one level into it is still a good decision in my opinion. We also build up into Panic and Berserker, but this time we want to go for Max Berserker. Getting that added 25% attack recovery is very, very strong on this hunter. Lastly, instead of building over to Famine, we go down and take Overwhelm instead. This trait has become standard for a lot of hunters since the new Persona Web update, and in my opinion, it's no different for Soul Weaver. If you're familiar with my other guides, you'll know I usually throw a few build variations in this section, but honestly, this build really is the only one I feel like you need to know with Soul Weaver. You could go Confined if you want to shut down loops even more, but then you cut off a huge part of Entangled, which is being able to volt faster and catch survivors off guard. You could go Insolence, but due to her speed, Violeta doesn't really need much more help getting to her very first presence. Because Violeta is a chip hunter and has very strong combo attack due to it, going anti-heal traits aren't super necessary, since most hunters, save for ones like Doctor, Meteorologist, Barmaid, Psychologist, and Puppeteer, can't heal that last 25% chip damage, letting you be able to combo them with your web shot and basic attack. If you want to sacrifice some levels on Berserker, going traits like Sadist for chair speed can be viable. Or if you want to be more aggressive, going Wanted Order could also be a fair option for finding quick chases. Like her builds, Violeta doesn't have all that much variety in store given her playstyles. There's only two in general, and I would argue one is 100% the better option in most cases. Her first playstyle is Chairgarding. This playstyle on Violeta is particularly strong for three reasons. Number one, stacking attack recovery is super strong on her, which means following up on saves by downing immediately after is insanely easy. Two, Violeta's speed she gets from Entangled is genuinely bonkers. She can easily patrol further away from chair, get one hit, and run through webs to catch the survivor saving before they even make it. And third, her combo potential. If the other two, her attack recovery and speed, fail, she has her web shot basic attack combo that gives her a very strong and pretty reliable combo that just adds to her potential as a chair guarder even more. The general way you want to go about this playstyle is pretty simple. Your very early game guarding isn't as good for two reasons. One, you don't have overwhelm stacks yet, and two, your web recharge rate is lower, meaning less abilities in general. So, your early game should be played prioritizing leveling your presence up and finding the easiest chase. This will typically be the decoder. After downing and chairing, I wouldn't recommend guarding, not the first chair. Instead, go out and find another chase. Look at ciphers that might be moving to find your next target. If you hear tinnitus near chair, then you can guard, because it's safe to assume someone is trying to save. Later into the game, when you have at least 2 overwhelm stacks, you are able to do more guarding. Make sure you have chairs set up properly with at least 3 webs to walk through for max entangled stacks. This gives you the move speed to patrol really well, and the attack speed for double hits. Your end game can be tricky. With detention, this is the time you should play more aggressive. Catch survivors off guard by swapping to either warp or teleport if you need to, and utilize your speed boost from webs to get to gates faster as well. Violeta's other playstyle is worse, admittedly, but can be quite fun. I call it Ranger Violeta, and it's fully centered around chase and shifting Violeta into a pure chip damage hunter, prioritizing using her web shot over her traps. This playstyle isn't as in-depth as her other one, mainly since the cut and dry of it is hit shots, don't suck, and be aggressive. It requires a good understanding of how to use web shot and land hits consistently, which is mechanically more difficult than just chair guarding. The biggest reason why this playstyle isn't great is how limiting her resource meter and cooldowns make it. Someone like Bonbon can have a very consistent chip playstyle as long as you are good at hitting bombs properly. But Violeta doesn't have that same luxury. It's not because her web shot is inherently bad, but it's because Nutties wants Violeta to be that trap-based setup chair guard hunter. With the new Persona Web update, they buffed that playstyle even more. To end off this guide, I thought I'd share my personal thoughts on Soul Weaver, where she fits in the meta right now, and her overall power level. I love Violeta. I want to warn you, I might be a bit biased on my rankings here, but I would argue she's a solid B tier hunter, maybe even low A tier. I absolutely adore projectile-based hunters so much. Trust, hitting absolutely nasty snipes is so satisfying. No way. What the heck? Snipe of the century, holy. Oh my gosh, that was nuts. I don't think Violeta is necessarily insanely strong, but she for sure doesn't feel weak at all. She can take a bit of effort to get the hang of and master, but the payout feels so rewarding. That's all for this guide. If you liked it or it helped you out, I would appreciate if you could like this video. These guides take so much longer to make than my normal videos, so I would greatly appreciate if you could give this video a like, and maybe even subscribe to my channel. It's free, takes less than 5 seconds, and you can always unsubscribe later. Thank you so much for watching this video, good luck mastering Soul Weaver, and I will see you in the next video.